The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy sat in their seats, staring at the giant screen floating above the center chamber. Normally, the hall was full of arguments, speeches, and political games. But today, fear had silenced everyone. On the screen was a single image, a destroyed colony. Broken buildings stretched across the horizon. Burned vehicles lay scattered in the streets. Smoke still rose from the remains of what had once been a thriving city. No signs of battle. No signs of war. No signs of survivors. Just silence. Council Speaker Varric slowly stood from his seat. His gray skin looked pale under the bright lights. 3 days ago, he said, his voice shaking slightly, the colony world of Carol. 9 stopped all communications. The room remained silent. Rescue teams arrived yesterday. A new image appeared. Several enormous claw marks were carved into the ground. Many representatives looked away immediately. They recognized them. Everyone did. A nervous whisper spread through the chamber. It can't be. The apex predator. Impossible. Varric nodded slowly. Unfortunately, it is possible. The whispering stopped. Fear returned. For thousands of years, stories of the apex predator had haunted every corner of the galaxy. Some called it a monster. Others called it nature's perfect weapon. Entire civilizations had fallen after encountering it. Nobody knew where it originally came from. Nobody knew how many existed. What everyone knew was simple. If an apex predator appeared on your world, your chances of survival were almost zero. The beast was stronger than armored vehicles, faster than military aircraft, smarter than most hunting animals. Weapons barely slowed it down. Many species had spent centuries studying ways to stop it. None had succeeded. The giant screen changed again, this time showing security footage. The room became even quieter. A large creature stepped into view. Its body was covered in dark scales. Its glowing eyes scanned the area. Massive claws dug into the metal floor beneath its feet. The beast looked almost 10 meters long. Even through a recording, it felt terrifying. The video lasted only 6 seconds. Then the image went black. Several representatives looked sick. Others refused to look at the screen at all. One alien ambassador stood up. "What happens now?" she asked. Varric took a deep breath. "The Dominion has made its decision." Immediately, nervous murmurs filled the room. Everyone knew the Dominion. It was one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Their military controlled hundreds of worlds. Their leaders rarely asked permission for anything. A tall Dominion commander stood from his seat. His black uniform looked perfectly clean. His expression showed no emotion. "The apex predator has been secured," he announced. The room exploded with questions. "Secured? How? Where is it?" The commander raised one hand. Silence returned. "It is currently inside a maximum security transport vessel." Many representatives looked relieved. The commander continued, "And it is being sent to Earth." The room froze. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then chaos erupted. "What?" "Earth. The human world?" "Why?" The commander waited patiently. Finally, he answered. "The humans continue refusing Dominion authority." Everyone understood. For years, humanity had remained independent. While many younger civilizations accepted Dominion control, humans refused. They traded with everyone. They made their own decisions. They ignored threats. The Dominion disliked that very much. "The transport vessel will arrive at Earth within 7 days," the commander said calmly. "Humanity will be given one final opportunity to surrender." A representative from a nearby star nation jumped to his feet. "And if they refuse?" The commander looked directly at him. "Then the apex predator will be released." The room became silent again. Everyone knew what that meant. Human civilization would end, just like many others before it, far away from the council hall. On Earth, life continued normally. Cities remained busy. People worked, studied, traveled, and enjoyed their daily lives. But news of the Dominion's announcement spread quickly. Television stations interrupted programs. News websites filled with updates. Social media exploded with discussions. Across the world, People watched reports about the incoming threat. Many expected panic. Instead, something strange happened. Humans became curious. In one restaurant, customers discussed possible survival plans while eating dinner. In another city, people created jokes about the creature. Scientists debated its biology. Hunters discussed its behavior. Chefs wondered what kind of meat it might have. The reaction confused nearly every alien observer. A famous alien reporter interviewed a human military officer. "Are your people not afraid?" she asked. The officer smiled. "We're concerned." "Concerned?" the reporter repeated. "That's all." The officer shrugged. "We've dealt with dangerous animals before." The reporter stared at him. Dangerous animals? The apex predator destroyed civilizations. The officer nodded. "Then we'd better learn more about it." The interview quickly became famous across the galaxy. Many aliens believed humans simply didn't understand the danger. Others believed humanity was pretending to be brave. Either way, everyone expected fear to arrive eventually, but it never did. 7 days later, the giant Dominion transport vessel entered Earth's orbit. The massive ship blocked part of the sky. Billions watched live broadcasts. Alien viewers from thousands of worlds watched too. The entire galaxy waited. Inside the transport ship, warning alarms suddenly activated. Red lights flashed across the corridors. Crew members ran through the halls. Panic spread rapidly. Something had gone wrong. Very wrong. A terrified officer rushed into the command center. "The containment field has failed." The captain's eyes widened. "What?" The creature escaped. For a moment, nobody moved. Then alarms grew even louder. The captain immediately contacted Earth. "This is not a drill," he shouted. "The apex predator is loose." Millions watching the broadcast gasped. The beast had escaped before landing. Somewhere below, on Earth's surface, the creature disappeared into a vast wilderness region. Helicopters searched. Satellites scanned forests. Military forces mobilized. Alien observers expected immediate disaster. Hours passed, then days. No cities were destroyed. No armies were wiped out. No civilization-ending attacks occurred. The predator had vanished. Human search teams entered the wilderness. Experts tracked footprints. Scientists studied clues. Hunters joined the effort. The entire galaxy watched every update. Then, for days after the escape, a message arrived from Earth. The Galactic Council immediately gathered. Representatives filled the chamber. Varric opened the transmission. A human woman appeared on the giant screen. Behind her stood several researchers. Everyone waited nervously. The woman smiled. "We found it." The room erupted with noise. Questions flew everywhere. Was it alive? Was it attacking? How many casualties? The woman raised one hand. Silence returned. Then she spoke again. And her next sentence shocked the entire galaxy. "We have an important question." The representatives leaned forward. The woman looked at her notes. Then she asked, "Does anyone know if the apex predator is safe to eat?" For several seconds, nobody in the chamber moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody spoke. Even Speaker Varric simply stared at the screen. Surely he had heard wrong. Surely humanity wasn't serious. But the human researchers behind the woman were already discussing cooking methods. And somewhere on Earth, cameras were preparing to show the galaxy something no civilization had ever imagined. The hunt was over, and humanity's real plans were only beginning. The question spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Is the apex predator safe to eat? News networks replayed the human scientists' words every hour. Alien citizens thought it was a joke. Military leaders thought humans had finally lost their minds. Scientists believed the statement had to be a misunderstanding. But on Earth, nobody was laughing. Humanity was serious. Very serious. Inside a large command center near the wilderness zone, dozens of experts stood around a holographic map. The escaped apex predator had been moving through forests, mountains, and rivers for days. Yet something strange had happened. The creature had not attacked any towns. It had not destroyed any cities. It had not behaved like the unstoppable nightmare described in alien legends. Instead, it seemed to be hiding. That fact alone confused everyone. General Mason stared at the map. Report. A young officer stepped forward. The target moved 30 kilometers north during the night. Any attacks? No, sir. The room remained quiet. A scientist named Dr. Harper crossed her arms. The behavior doesn't match the stories. General Mason nodded. Explain. The galaxy claims this thing destroys entire civilizations. She pointed toward the moving marker. But it's acting like a large animal trying to avoid danger. Several people exchanged looks. The idea sounded ridiculous. How could a creature feared by thousands of worlds simply be an animal? Still, the evidence supported the theory. Dr. Harper continued. It hunts for food. It rests. It avoids large groups. It follows water sources. She shrugged. Those are animal behaviors. The general looked thoughtful. Then we hunt it like an animal. Across the galaxy, millions watched live coverage of the operation. Alien experts constantly warn humans. Do not engage. Retreat immediately if spotted. Nothing can stop the apex predator. But humans continue preparing. Tracking teams enter the wilderness. Drones fill the skies. Special sensors scan the forests. Hunters with years of experience studied every clue. The hunt had begun. 3 days later, deep inside the mountains, a small tracking team made an important discovery. Massive footprints crossed a muddy riverbank. The tracks were fresh, very fresh. Team leader Sarah Chun crouched beside one footprint. The impression was almost a meter wide. She smiled. We're close. Another hunter examined nearby trees. Large claw marks covered the bark. Something powerful had passed through recently. Sarah activated her radio. Control, this is Team Alpha. We found fresh signs. The command center immediately became busy. Analysts studied incoming data. Satellite operators adjusted their scans. The hunt was getting closer. Meanwhile, the apex predator was watching. Hidden among thick trees, glowing red eyes followed the humans. The creature remained perfectly still, silent, patient. For several minutes it observed them. The beast was intelligent, far more intelligent than Earth's natural predators. It understood danger. It understood pursuit. And it understood that something unusual was happening. Every world it had visited before reacted with fear. Armies fled. Cities evacuated. Entire populations panicked. These humans were different. They followed it, studied it, tracked it. The behavior confused the creature. Slowly, it slipped deeper into the forest. Hours later, Team Alpha discovered something even more surprising. A partially eaten animal lay beside a stream. Dr. Harper examined the remains. This confirms it. What? Sarah asked. The apex predator is a hunter. Of course it's a hunter. No. Dr. Harper pointed at the carcass. It hunts normally. Everyone looked confused. She explained. A true civilization-ending monster wouldn't need to hunt this way. It would simply kill everything. She stood up. This thing has limits. The statement changed everything. For centuries, the galaxy believed the apex predator was unstoppable. Humans were beginning to suspect otherwise. That night, around campfires and command stations, a new theory spread through the human teams. Maybe the beast wasn't invincible. Maybe everyone else had simply been too afraid to test it. The next morning proved the theory. At sunrise, Team Bravo finally saw the creature. The sight froze everyone. The apex predator stood on a rocky cliff overlooking a valley. It was enormous. Dark scales covered its body. Muscles moved beneath thick armor-like skin. Its glowing eyes scanned the landscape. Even experienced soldiers felt nervous. The creature looked terrifying. A camera drone recorded everything. Billions across the galaxy watched live. The predator suddenly turned. Its eyes locked onto the drone. Then it moved. The beast exploded forward with incredible speed. The drone operator barely had time to react. The creature leaped. Massive claws struck the machine. Metal shattered. The drone disappeared from the sky. Across the galaxy, viewers gasped. The legends were true. The monster was dangerous. Very dangerous. But the footage also revealed something important. The predator had worked hard to destroy the drone. It wasn't invincible. It wasn't magical. It was simply powerful. Human analysts studied the video for hours. Weaknesses appeared. Movement patterns emerged. A strategy formed. General Mason approved a new plan. The humans would stop chasing. Instead, they would lure the beast. A giant trap was constructed deep inside the mountains. It covered nearly half a kilometer. Sensors, barriers, and reinforced containment systems were installed. Every piece was designed, using data gathered during the hunt. Alien experts laughed. The trap will fail. The creature will escape. It always escapes. History supported their claims. No civilization had ever successfully captured an apex predator. None. Still, humanity continued. 2 days later, the final stage began. A specialized drone carried fresh bait into the trap zone. The scent spread through the valley. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Then sensors activated. The beast was approaching. Inside command centers across Earth, people held their breath. The predator entered the valley. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The trap remained inactive. The creature moved closer, closer, closer. Then suddenly, alarms erupted. Target inside zone. Activate. Massive barriers exploded from the ground. Energy fields surrounded the valley. The predator roared. The sound shook nearby mountains. It charged toward the nearest wall. Impact. The entire structure trembled. People watching gasped. Another impact followed. Then another. The barriers held. The beast attacked again. And again. And again. But this time, something happened that had never happened before in recorded galactic history. The apex predator could not escape. Silence filled command centers. Silence filled the Galactic Council. Silence filled millions of homes across thousands of worlds. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. The creature finally stopped, breathing heavily, trapped, captured, for the first time in history. General Mason slowly stood from his chair. A smile appeared on his face. Well done. Cheers erupted throughout the command center. Scientists hugged each other. Engineers celebrated. Hunters laughed with relief. The impossible had happened. Humanity had captured the monster that terrified the galaxy. But the greatest surprise was still waiting. As researchers prepared to study the beast, Dr. Harper received the first biological scans. She stared at the data, then stared again. Something wasn't right. The numbers looked impossible. Slowly, her eyes widened. General, what is it? She looked up. The meat. The general frowned. What about it? Dr. Harper swallowed. Then she revealed a discovery that would shock the entire galaxy even more than the capture itself. The apex predator might be one of the most nutritious life forms ever discovered. The room went silent, and somewhere nearby, one of the scientists quietly asked the question everyone was already thinking. Do you think it would taste good? The news spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. Humans had captured an apex predator. For thousands of years, such a thing had been considered impossible. Now it was sitting inside a reinforced containment facility on Earth, alive, trapped, and under constant observation. Every major government in the galaxy demanded access to the research. Every scientific organization wanted copies of the data. Every news network covered the story 24 hours a day. But nobody was prepared for what humanity would discover next. Inside the Earth Research Complex, the captured predator rested behind layers of transparent armor glass. The creature looked calmer now. Its massive body stretched across the containment area. Bright lights reflected off its dark scales. Dozens of scientists watched from observation rooms. Some studied its movements. Others analyzed tissue samples. Dr. Harper barely slept. The more data she collected, the stranger things became. One evening, she stood in front of a large holographic display. Rows of biological information floated in the air. General Mason entered the room. You've been staring at those numbers for 6 hours. Dr. Harper didn't look away, because they make no sense. The general frowned. Explain. She enlarged several charts. The creature is powerful. Obviously. It is fast. Obviously. It is dangerous. Very obviously. She turned toward him. But it isn't unstoppable. The general crossed his arms. How far from unstoppable? Dr. Harper pointed to the screen, closer to a very large animal than a civilization-ending monster. The room became quiet. For a moment, neither spoke. The statement sounded ridiculous, yet the data supported it. The creature had weaknesses. It became tired. It needed food. It required water. Its bones could break. Its organs could fail. Like every living thing. Nothing about it suggested an immortal monster. General Mason stared at the hologram. Then why does the entire galaxy fear it? That's the question. The answer arrived 3 days later. A transport ship landed outside the facility. Its passengers included some of the galaxy's leading historians. They had spent their lives studying ancient records. When they reviewed humanity's findings, they were shocked. One elderly scholar named Professor Rallick requested an emergency meeting. Scientists, military officers, and government representatives gathered immediately. Rallick activated an ancient star map. Images appeared above the conference table. Old worlds, lost civilizations, ancient battlefields. The story of the apex predator began over 4,000 years ago, he said. Everyone listened carefully. Most historical records from that period were destroyed. Why? Dr. Harper asked. Nobody knows. The old scholar touched another control. New images appeared. Ancient carvings. Damaged writings. Half-erased warnings. Rallick continued. Every surviving document tells the same story. The beast appeared. Civilizations panicked. Worlds surrendered. He paused. Then he smiled slightly. But none of the records explain how many worlds it actually destroyed. The room became silent. General Mason leaned forward. What do you mean? Rallick zoomed in on several documents. The stories become larger with every century. The humans exchanged confused looks. The scholar continued. The first records describe dangerous attacks. The second generation describes entire cities being destroyed. The third generation claims planets were lost. The fourth generation claims civilizations collapsed. His smile widened. The legend grew. Suddenly, everyone understood. Fear had changed the story. Each generation added more details. Each retelling made the monster stronger. Over thousands of years, facts became myths. Myths became legends. Legends became unquestioned truth. Dr. Harper slowly sat down. You think the galaxy scared itself? Professor Rallick nodded. Exactly. The room fell silent. No one liked the answer, because it made perfect sense. A dangerous creature had existed. Nobody doubted that. But fear had transformed it into something much bigger. Something supernatural. Something unstoppable. And once enough people believed it, nobody challenged the story. Until humans arrived. A week later, another discovery changed everything. Researchers completed a full nutritional analysis of the creature's tissue. The results stunned the scientific community. Dr. Harper reviewed the report 3 times before believing it. Then she rushed to General Mason's office. You need to see this. Minutes later, a meeting was called. Scientists gathered around the table. The report appeared on the main screen. One researcher cleared his throat. The protein density is extraordinary. Another scientist nodded. The mineral content exceeds anything we've seen before. A third researcher added more data. The energy value is nearly 5 times higher than traditional livestock. Silence followed. Then somebody finally asked the obvious question. Are we saying this thing is food? Several scientists laughed nervously, but nobody answered, because everyone was secretly thinking the same thing. General Mason rubbed his forehead. This conversation is becoming ridiculous. Maybe, Dr. Harper shrugged, but the numbers don't lie. Across the galaxy, rumors began spreading. At first, nobody believed them. Then leaked reports appeared online. News stations picked up the story. Within days, millions of aliens were discussing the same unbelievable possibility. Could the apex predator actually be edible? Most people rejected the idea immediately. Others became curious. The debate grew larger every day. Then Earth announced something that shocked everyone. A controlled culinary experiment had been approved. The galaxy exploded. Alien governments protested. Scientists argued. Religious leaders condemned the idea. News networks called it madness. But humanity moved forward. Inside a secured laboratory kitchen, a small tissue sample rested on a metal tray. The sample had been carefully removed without harming the creature. Multiple safety tests confirmed it contained no dangerous toxins, no harmful parasites, no biological threats. It was safe, at least according to every test available. A famous human chef named Daniel Reyes entered the room. Cameras followed him. Billions watched live. Daniel looked at the sample, then looked at the cameras, then smiled. Well, he rolled up his sleeves. Let's see what all the fear is made of. Across the galaxy, people leaned closer to their screens. Nobody wanted to miss this. The chef carefully prepared the meat. Simple seasoning, simple cooking, nothing complicated. The smell soon filled the laboratory. Scientists exchanged surprised looks. One researcher quietly whispered, "That actually smells good." Daniel finished cooking. The room became completely silent. Every camera focused on the plate. The chef picked up a small piece. For several seconds he studied it. Then he took a bite. The entire galaxy waited. His expression changed instantly. His eyes widened. The room held its breath. Slowly, Daniel swallowed. Then he looked directly into the nearest camera. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Finally, the chef smiled. A very big smile. "Oh." He paused, then laughed. "Oh, that's dangerous." Dr. Harper blinked. "What does that mean?" Daniel pointed at the plate. "Because if the rest tastes like this..." He took another bite. "Humanity is going to hunt every single one of these things." The room exploded into chaos. Scientists rushed forward. Reporters shouted questions. Alien viewers stared in disbelief. But deep inside the containment area, the apex predator slowly opened its glowing eyes. And for the first time since arriving on Earth, the creature looked nervous. The galaxy had survived wars. It had survived rebellions. It had survived plagues and economic collapses. But nobody had ever seen a crisis quite like this, because humanity had just announced that the galaxy's most feared creature was delicious. For 2 straight weeks, every major news network discussed only one topic, the apex predator. More specifically, what it tasted like. Inside the Galactic Council, emergency meetings were being held daily. Speaker Varick looked exhausted. Representatives argued across the chamber. "This is madness. They're encouraging people to eat an apex predator. The creature destroyed civilizations." A human ambassador calmly raised his hand. "According to our research, the creature mostly destroyed camps, settlements, and a few poorly defended colonies." The room erupted. Several representatives shouted at once, "You are missing the point." The human shrugged. "Maybe the point needs updating." That statement only made things worse. Meanwhile, back on Earth, things had become even stranger. The cooking experiment had gone viral. Chef Daniel Reyes had become famous overnight. His face appeared on magazines, advertisements, and news broadcasts across hundreds of worlds. People called him many names. The Beast Taster, the Monster Chef, the Predator Cook. Daniel personally hated all of them, but he couldn't stop the attention. Every day, thousands of interview requests flooded his communication system. One morning, while drinking coffee, he received a message from Dr. Harper. Urgent meeting. That usually meant trouble. Daniel sighed. Of course it does. An hour later, he entered the research facility. The conference room was already full. Scientists sat around a holographic table. Several military officers stood near the walls. Dr. Harper looked unusually excited. Daniel immediately became nervous. Excited scientists were dangerous. "What's happening?" he asked. Dr. Harper activated a hologram. Several charts appeared. "Remember the nutritional studies?" Daniel nodded. "The reason everyone wants to eat the monster?" "Partly." She enlarged one section. "This is the important part." Daniel stared. Numbers filled the display. He understood none of them. Dr. Harper noticed. "Right." She cleared her throat. "Simple version. Please." "The meat contains biological compounds that don't exist anywhere else." The room became quiet. General Mason crosses arms. Useful compounds? Dr. Harper smiled. Extremely useful. New images appeared. Medical scans. Industrial reports. Scientific models. The compounds accelerate healing. Several people blinked. What? Dr. Harper pointed at the screen. In controlled tests, damaged tissue recovered nearly 3 times faster. Now everyone was paying attention. She continued. Not only that, the next chart appeared. The material is also useful in advanced manufacturing. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Food and construction materials? Apparently, the chef laughed. That's ridiculous. Welcome to my week. But the surprises weren't over. Another scientist stood. We've discovered something else. Everyone looked at him. The scales. What about them? General Mason asked. The scientist activated another display. A small projectile struck a scale sample. The projectile shattered. The scale remained undamaged. The room became silent. Those scales are stronger than military armor. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Finally, Daniel shook his head. Okay. He pointed toward the screen. Now we're definitely talking about a civilization-ending animal. Several people laughed, but Dr. Harper looked serious. No. Everyone turned toward her. This is exactly why the legends grew. She pointed at the data. The creature is dangerous. The scales are remarkable. The biology is incredible. She paused. But none of that makes it unstoppable. General Mason nodded slowly. The galaxy exaggerated. Exactly. For thousands of years, nobody had studied the predator properly. Fear had replaced science. Now humans were correcting the mistake. Unfortunately, the rest of the galaxy wasn't handling the news very well. A few days later, the first official request arrived. Then hundreds more. Then thousands. Governments wanted samples. Universities wanted samples. Medical corporations wanted samples. Private collectors wanted samples. Restaurants wanted samples. Especially restaurants. One famous alien restaurant owner publicly offered enough money to buy an entire moon for a single kilogram of predator meat. The offer became front-page news everywhere. Daniel nearly choked when he heard about it. A moon! Dr. Harper nodded. A small moon. That somehow makes it worse. The demand continued growing. The problem was obvious. There was only one captured predator, and nobody intended to butcher it, at least not yet. Then another discovery changed everything. A deep space exploration vessel operating near unexplored regions of the galaxy sent an emergency transmission. The message arrived during a council meeting. Speaker Varric opened it immediately. A nervous explorer appeared on screen. Behind him stood several frightened crew members. What happened? Varric asked. The explorer swallowed. We found something. The chamber became quiet. What? The explorer activated his display. A planetary image appeared. At first, nobody understood. Then the camera zoomed in. Movement covered the surface. Large movement. Thousands of moving creatures. The explorer's voice trembled. We found their home world. Silence filled the council. The camera zoomed further. The representatives finally understood what they were seeing. Apex predators. Not 1, not 10, not hundreds. Millions. Entire regions of the planet moved with enormous creatures. Mountains shook beneath their footsteps. Forests bent around their paths. The sight was unbelievable. Speaker Varric slowly stood. Impossible. The explorer shook his head. No. His voice sounded even more frightened now. The impossible part comes next. The camera shifted again. The view moved across the planet, past giant predators, past forests, past oceans, towards something hidden deep within a continent. At first, it looked like mountains. Then someone noticed the shapes. Buildings. Massive buildings. Ancient buildings. The remains of a lost civilization. The chamber erupted with noise. Ruins. Who built them? When? The explorer looked pale. We don't know. But there are signs of advanced technology. Dr. Harper leaned forward. You're saying intelligent life existed on the Predator's world? Yes. And that's not the worst part. Everyone froze. The explorer activated one final image. The ruins contained enormous symbols carved into stone. Symbols matching records from some of the oldest civilizations in galactic history. Civilizations that supposedly disappeared thousands of years ago. Professor Rallick stared at the screen. His face lost all color. No! Speaker Varric looked confused. What is it? The old historian slowly rose from his seat. His hands were shaking. I've seen those symbols before. The chamber became silent. Where? Someone asked. Rallick looked at the ruins, then at the gathered representatives. Then he spoke the words that sent fear through the entire galaxy. Those symbols belonged to the civilization that created the original apex predator legends. Complete silence followed. The room felt colder, because suddenly a terrifying possibility appeared. What if the legends had never been accidents? What if someone had created them, spread them, controlled them, for a reason? And if that civilization once lived on the predator homeworld, then what else might still be hiding there? Millions of apex predators were frightening enough, but buried beneath those ancient ruins could be something far worse. Something that had manipulated the fears of the entire galaxy for thousands of years. And as the transmission ended, nobody noticed one final detail hidden in the footage. Deep beneath the ruins, a massive underground structure had begun to wake up. The discovery of the ancient ruins changed everything. For weeks, the galaxy had been arguing about predator meat, scientific research, and whether humanity was completely insane. Now, nobody was laughing anymore. Something far more important had appeared. The ruins, and whatever was sleeping beneath them. A joint expedition was organized immediately. For the first time in history, dozens of species agreed to work together without political arguments. The situation was simply too important. If the ancient civilization that created the apex predator legends had truly existed, then they might have shaped galactic history itself. And nobody knew why. 3 months later, the expedition fleet entered orbit around the predator homeworld. The sight was breathtaking. Gigantic forests stretched across continents. Massive oceans reflected the sunlight. Towering mountain ranges pierced the clouds. And everywhere, apex predators. Thousands could be seen from orbit. Some hunted across grasslands. Others rested near rivers. Many simply wandered through the wilderness. The creatures looked dangerous. But after months of study, humanity no longer feared them. General Mason stood on the bridge of the lead ship. Beside him stood Dr. Harper and Professor Rallick. The old historian stared at the planet. I spent my entire life studying legends about this world. His voice was quiet. And now we're actually here. Dr. Harper smiled. Let's hope the legends are wrong. Rallick looked uneasy. I hope so, too. Hours later, the expedition landed near the ancient ruins. The structures were enormous. Even damaged by time, they towered over the landscape. Broken pillars rose hundreds of meters into the sky. Ancient roads stretched into the distance. Massive stone statues watched silently from every direction. The architecture looked unlike anything seen elsewhere in the galaxy. Everyone felt it immediately. This place had once been important. Very important. Thousands of researchers spread across the area. Drones scanned buildings. Engineers mapped underground chambers. Archaeologists examined every carving they could find. For several days, everything went smoothly. Then the first strange discovery appeared. A team exploring a collapsed temple found a hidden chamber. Inside were hundreds of stone tablets. Most were damaged, but some remained readable. When translators finally decoded the language, the results shocked everyone. The tablets described the apex predators, but not as monsters, not as gods, not even as weapons. They described them as livestock. The room fell silent when the translation appeared. Dr. Harper read the text twice, then 3 times. You have got to be kidding me. Professor Rallick adjusted his glasses. It says the same thing every time. General Mason looked confused. Livestock. The historian nodded. Food animals. Nobody spoke. For thousands of years, entire civilizations had feared these creatures. Ancient records suggested they had once been farm animals. The idea seemed absurd, but the evidence continued growing. More tablets were discovered. More translations followed. Every new discovery pointed toward the same conclusion. The ancient civilization had raised apex predators for food, exactly the way humans raise cattle. Daniel Reyes would have loved hearing that. Unfortunately, he wasn't present. He was back on Earth becoming famous for entirely ridiculous reasons. Meanwhile, the expedition kept uncovering secrets, and each secret became stranger than the last. One morning, a drone discovered a massive underground entrance beneath the central ruins. The structure was hidden beneath layers of rock and vegetation. It appeared completely artificial. Ancient metal doors sealed the entrance. Massive symbols covered every surface. The symbols matched those found throughout the ruins. Professor Rallick examined them carefully. His expression darkened. "What do they say?" General Mason asked. The historian swallowed, then answered, "A warning." Everyone became quiet. "What kind of warning?" Rallick translated slowly. "Do not awaken the voice below." Silence. Nobody liked those words. Not even a little. Dr. Harper folded her arms. "Voice below." "No idea." The old historian looked nervous. But whoever built this place clearly wanted something to remain sealed. General Mason stared at the giant doors. For several moments, he said nothing. Finally, he sighed, "Which means we're definitely going inside." Nobody argued, because they all knew he was right. If answers existed, they were probably behind those doors. 2 days later, engineers succeeded in opening the entrance. The enormous doors slowly moved apart. Dust filled the air. Ancient darkness stretched beyond the opening. Exploration teams entered carefully. Powerful lights illuminated a gigantic underground city. Everyone froze. The place was enormous. Buildings stretched into darkness. Machines sat silent after thousands of years. Roads crossed vast chambers beneath the planet. The underground complex was larger than many modern cities. Dr. Harper looked around in amazement. This changes everything. But something felt wrong. The city looked abandoned, yet not destroyed. It was as if everyone had simply left. The deeper teams explored, the stranger things became. No bodies, no signs of war, no evidence of natural disaster. The population had vanished. Completely. Hours later, a research team reached the center of the underground city. There they found a gigantic circular structure. Its surface was covered with glowing symbols. Ancient energy still flowed through its walls. The machine remained active after thousands of years. That fact alone terrified the engineers. One technician examined the readings. His face turned pale. "General." Mason looked up. "What?" "The machine is operational." The room immediately became silent. "That's impossible." "I know." The technician swallowed. "But it's true." Dr. Harper stepped closer. "What does it do?" The technician stared at his instruments, then slowly looked up. His voice barely worked. "I think." He paused. "I think it's a communication device." Everyone exchanged confused looks. "A communication device? With who?" someone asked. Nobody had an answer. Then suddenly the machine activated. The entire chamber shook. Lights flashed across ancient walls. Warning alarms echoed through the underground city. Researchers stumbled backward. Several screamed. The machine had awakened, and something was responding. Professor Rallick's face turned white. "Get back!" But it was already too late. A deep voice filled the chamber. Not from speakers. Not from machinery. The voice seemed to come from everywhere. Every wall. Every floor. Every shadow. The ancient words echoed through darkness. For the first time in thousands of years, something was speaking. Something old. Something powerful. Something that should have remained asleep. The voice spoke a single sentence. A sentence that froze everyone where they stood. "Has the galaxy learned to fear again?" Silence followed. Pure silence. Then the machine displayed a holographic image. A figure appeared above the platform. Tall. Humanoid. Ancient. Its glowing eyes slowly scanned the room. Watching. Studying. Awake. Professor Rallick staggered backward. His entire body trembled. Dr. Harper grabbed his arm. "What is it?" The old historian stared at the hologram in horror. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. The founder, General Mason, frowned. The founder what? Rallick looked at the glowing figure, then at the humans, then at the terrified alien researchers surrounding him, and he revealed the truth. The founder of the Fear Empire. The room became silent, because every historian in the galaxy knew that name. The Fear Empire had supposedly vanished 4,000 years ago. Its rulers controlled entire civilizations through terror. They manipulated populations, created monsters, spread legends, and according to every historical record, they were extinct. But one of them was standing right there, awake, waiting, and smiling. The underground city was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The glowing hologram stood above the ancient machine, staring down at the expedition team. Its bright eyes slowly scanned the room, watching, calculating, judging. Professor Rallick looked like he had seen a ghost, maybe something worse. The founder, he whispered. The holographic figure smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was a smile of someone who already believed they had won. I see my name still survives, the figure said. Its voice echoed through the massive chamber. General Mason stepped forward. His soldiers immediately raised their weapons. The founder laughed. You still point weapons at things you do not understand. Dr. Harper, cross her arms. And you still enjoy dramatic entrances. Several humans quietly smiled. The founder looked surprised. That reaction was not what it expected. For thousands of years, fear had always been the first response. Always. Yet the humans standing before it looked annoyed rather than terrified. The founder studied them carefully. Interesting. The hologram expanded. Ancient stars appeared around it. Images of old civilizations floated in the air. Worlds, empires, entire species, all kneeling, all surrendering. The founder raised one hand. This was my galaxy. The images changed. Gigantic creatures appeared. Apex predators. Thousands of them. Ancient armies fled before them. Cities burned. Governments collapsed. The founder smiled proudly. My people discovered a simple truth. The room remained silent. Fear is stronger than any weapon. The images continued. Entire civilizations obeyed commands simply because they were afraid. They never fought. They never resisted. They surrendered before battles even began. The founder looked pleased. We ruled for centuries. General Mason shook his head. No. The founder frowned. No, you didn't rule. The general pointed at the images. You scared people. The smile disappeared. A strange silence filled the chamber. For the first time, the founder looked irritated. You fail to understand. No, Mason replied. We understand perfectly. The general looked around the room, at the alien researchers, at the scientists, at the soldiers, then back at the hologram. The problem is that fear only works until somebody stops believing the story. Dr. Harper nodded, and humanity stopped believing. The founder's eyes narrowed. For several seconds it said nothing. Then another holographic image appeared. This one showed Earth. Millions of apex predators began appearing around the planet. The simulation looked terrifying. Alien researchers gasped. The founder smiled again. Imagine if they all arrived tomorrow. Nobody spoke. The founder waited. Expected panic. Expected fear. Expected surrender. Instead, a human engineer quietly raised his hand. What do they eat? The entire room turned toward him. The engineer shrugged. What? Even Dr. Harper looked confused. The engineer pointed at the simulation. If millions arrive, feeding them becomes important. Several humans nodded thoughtfully. The founder stared, completely confused. The engineer continued. And if they're edible... Suddenly realization spread through the room. Human researchers began whispering. Scientists started calculating numbers. Military officers exchanged looks. The founder watched in disbelief. Nobody was scared. Nobody. They were discussing farming opportunities. Professor Rallick began laughing, at first quietly, then louder. Soon he couldn't stop. The ancient ruler looked offended. Why are you laughing? The old historian wiped tears from his eyes. Because I finally understand. The founder remained silent. Rallick pointed toward the holographic predators. You spent thousands of years building the greatest fear campaign in history. The founder nodded proudly. Correct. And humans turned it into a food industry. The room exploded with laughter. Even some alien researchers joined in. The founder stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Its entire empire had been based on fear. Humans had accidentally destroyed that fear simply by asking one question. Can we eat it? The absurdity was overwhelming. But the situation became even worse for the founder. Dr. Harper activated a new display. Data appeared throughout the chamber. Scientific reports, historical evidence, ancient records, translations, proof. Years of lies filled the screens. The Fear Empire's secrets were finally exposed. The founder watched everything. Its expression slowly darkened. The truth was spreading across the galaxy. Live. Every world was watching. Billions. Trillions. The legends were dying. People finally understood. The apex predators had never conquered civilizations alone. Fear had done most of the work. Ultra-realistic sci-fi spaceship cafeteria scene, inspired by a tense first contact encounter. A confident female space commander in advanced black tactical armor with subtle orange glowing accents sits at a pristine white table. Across from her sat a massive reptilian alien warlord with dark crimson scales, glowing red eyes, razor-sharp teeth, and futuristic battle armor, engraved with luminous alien symbols. Between them is an enormous, freshly grilled steak on a white plate, dominating the foreground and symbolizing a mysterious diplomatic challenge. The human commander wears a calm, knowing smile while the alien watches intensely. Background shows futuristic crew members eating in a bright, sterile starship dining hall with sleek white walls, holographic displays, and soft ambient lighting. Highly detailed skin textures, realistic armor materials, cinematic depth of field, dramatic contrast, volumetric lighting, ray trace reflections, ultra-sharp focus, photorealistic rendering, Hollywood sci-fi movie still, 8K resolution, masterpiece quality, epic storytelling atmosphere, realistic shadows, extreme detail, professional color grading, shallow depth of field, award-winning science fiction photography.